The battlefield was silent after the storm of war. The air still carried the smell of smoke and burned metal. Pieces of broken ships lay scattered across the valley, their sharp edges shining under the pale light of the moon. The war between humans and the alien empire had lasted many years, and every side had lost too much. That night, only silence remained, heavy and endless. Ryan, a human warrior, walked slowly across the field. His armor was dented, and dust covered his face. He had survived the battle, but survival did not feel like victory. His boots crunched over ashes and shattered weapons as he searched for movement. He was not looking for enemies anymore. The fight was over. He was looking for survivors, anyone who might still be breathing among the ruins. He carried a small scanner on his wrist, a tool that showed life signs. From time to time, it gave a faint beep. Each time, Ryan hurried to the spot, only to find silence again. Sometimes he found a human soldier, but they were already gone. Sometimes he found an alien soldier, but they too had no breath left. Each discovery cut him deeper. The scanner's beeps were like false promises. Hours passed as he walked. His body was tired, but his will kept pushing forward. Somewhere in his heart, he believed that saving even one life would mean this night was not only about death. Then the scanner gave a different sound. A steady, weak signal blinked on the screen. It was not like the others. It was faint, almost fading, but still alive. Ryan's eyes narrowed. He followed the signal, moving faster. His boots slipped over broken glass and twisted steel, but he did not slow down. Finally, he reached a fallen tower, half buried in the ground. The scanner pointed to the shadows beneath the rubble. Ryan bent low, using his strength to push aside heavy pieces of stone and metal. Dust rose, making him cough, but he kept digging. After several minutes, he uncovered a small space where a figure lay still. It was not a human. The figure was slender, wearing royal-looking armor with silver markings. Her skin had a faint glow, soft and pale. Her hair spread across the ground like strands of silver threads. She looked young, but her uniform and crown-like headpiece told him she was not a simple soldier. She was someone of importance. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Her lips were pale, and her eyes were closed. Blood marked the side of her body where sharp metal had pierced through. Ryan's eyes widened as realization struck him. This was no ordinary survivor. This was an alien princess. For a long moment, he froze. The war had been against her people. The empire she came from had attacked human colonies for years. Many friends of his had died fighting against her kind. If anyone else had found her, they might have left her to die. But Ryan's heart did not allow it. She was alive, and that was enough. She was a person in need, not an enemy in that moment. He knelt beside her and checked her pulse. It was weak, almost gone. He tried calling out, but she did not respond. Her eyelids trembled as if she heard him faintly. A sound escaped her lips, a whisper in her language. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. It was a plea for help. Ryan pulled out a small medical kit from his belt. It was meant for humans, not aliens, but it was all he had. He cleaned her wound as best as he could and sealed it with foam that stopped the bleeding. She stirred slightly, her body tensing in pain, then relaxing again. He looked at her face, fragile and young, and wondered if she had ever seen the humans beyond the battlefield. Did she even know what kindness from a human felt like? Or was her life only filled with commands, politics, and war? The night grew colder as the wind passed over the battlefield. Ryan knew he could not stay long. His radio was broken, and he had no way to call for help. Carrying her back to human lines would be dangerous. His own people might see her as a threat, or worse, use her as a prisoner. Still, leaving her here was not an option. He gently lifted her in his arms. She was light, almost too light, as if the war had already stolen her strength. Her head rested against his shoulder, and he could hear her faint breathing close to his ear. As he carried her across the ruins, his mind filled with questions. Why had fate led him to her? Why had his blood scanner found her, out of thousands? He did not know. But he felt that this moment was important, more important than he could yet understand. Every step was heavy. His body ached from battle, but his will carried him forward. He thought of his fallen friends, and he thought of peace that never came. Maybe saving her would change nothing. Or maybe it would change everything. When he finally found shelter in a broken bunker, he laid her down gently on a soft patch of cloth. The place was quiet, save for now. He sat beside her, watching her fragile form. Her lips moved again, whispering something he could not understand. But even without words, he knew what she asked for. She wanted to live. The bunker was quiet except for the faint sound of the wind passing through broken walls. Ryan sat near the alien princess, his back resting against the cold stone. His armor felt heavy, but his thoughts were heavier. He had carried her from the battlefield, but now the harder question began. What was he supposed to do with her? He looked at her pale face. Her breathing was slow, her chest rising and falling with effort. She seemed fragile, like a candle flame struggling against the wind. Ryan knew she could slip away at any moment. He pressed a hand against her wrist, feeling the faint rhythm of her pulse. It was weak, but it was still there. His small medical kit had stopped the bleeding, but it was not enough. The wound inside her body was deeper than he could treat. Human tools were not made for alien blood and alien organs. If he did nothing more, she would not last long. As he thought, her eyes fluttered open. They were bright, glowing faintly in the dim light. For a moment, she looked confused, then frightened. She tried to move but winced in pain. Her hand rose weakly, as if to push him away. Ryan raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. Easy, he said softly, though he knew she might not understand the words. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You're safe here. She blinked, her lips parting. Words came out, broken and faint, in her language. He caught only a few sounds, nothing clear, but her tone was desperate. Her hand reached weakly toward him, not to push him away now, but as if to ask for something. Ryan leaned closer, trying to understand. Her breath was warm but weak against his ear as she whispered. Though he could not understand the words, he saw the plea in her eyes. She was asking for help. He tapped the side of his wrist scanner and switched on the translator function. The device was old and often struggled with alien languages, but it was his only chance. He placed it near her mouth and waited. She whispered again, her words trembling. The device crackled, then gave a broken translation, "Please, help me." Ryan felt something twist inside his chest. Those simple words carried the weight of her whole being. She was a princess of an empire that had fought his people for years, yet here she was, powerless, pleading not as a ruler but as a living being clinging to life. He nodded firmly. "I will help you," he said, his voice steady. He did not know how yet, But he meant it? Her eyes softened, a faint light of trust shining in them. She tried to say more, but her strength failed. Her head tilted back, and her eyelids closed again, though her hand still rested near his. Ryan sat back, his mind racing. He had promised her help, but promises meant nothing without action. He needed to think of a way to keep her alive. He scanned her with the wrist device, running a basic medical check. Numbers flashed on the screen, most of them in red. Her blood was unstable, poisoned by radiation from the battlefield. That explained why her body was shutting down. Her people's blood was delicate, unable to resist the damage. Ryan cursed under his breath. His kid had no medicine strong enough to treat radiation poisoning, especially not for alien biology. He pressed his forehead against his glove, closing his eyes in frustration. But then, a memory surfaced. Months ago, he had listened to a medic explain something unusual. Human blood had natural resistance to radiation and infection. It was stronger than most alien blood, adapted by centuries of struggle on Earth. The medic had once joked that human blood could probably keep an alien alive, if such a crazy thing ever happened. Ryan opened his eyes. The thought struck him like lightning. Could his blood save her? It sounded impossible. Human and alien biology were different. The body should reject foreign blood. But what if the medic had been right? What if his blood could give her strength to fight off the poison, at least for a little while? He looked at her again. Her breathing was shallower now, her lips turning pale blue. Time was running out. Ryan's hands shook slightly as he opened his kit again. Inside was a simple transfusion line, used for giving plasma to wounded soldiers. He stared at it, his jaw tight. If he used it, there was no turning back. He would risk his own strength, and if it failed, both of them might suffer. But when he looked at the princess again, he remembered her eyes. The fear, the plea, and then the small flicker of trust. He could not ignore it. He took a deep breath and set up the transfusion. His hands moved quickly, guided by instinct and training. He found a vein in his arm and slid the line in, then carefully placed the other end into her fragile arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the red flow began. Ryan felt a sting in his arm as his blood moved out, but he ignored it. His eyes stayed on her face, searching for any change. Minutes passed, heavy and long. At first, there was nothing. Then, faintly, her breathing deepened. Her chest rose with more strength. The color in her lips shifted from blue to pale pink. Her fingers twitched, curling slightly. Ryan's heart pounded. It was working. Against all reason, it was working. She stirred, her eyelids trembling before opening again. This time, when her gaze met his, her eyes held more light. Her lips moved, and though her voice was still weak, the translator whispered the words, "You gave life." Ryan felt a strange warmth spread through him. He nodded slowly. "Rest now. You are safe." She stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand. Then her hand moved weakly, touching the back of his. It was a small gesture, but it carried meaning. She trusted him. Ryan sat there, the transfusion line still connecting them. His body felt weaker as he shared his strength, but he did not stop. He knew she needed it more. As the night stretched on, he kept watch. Outside, the ruins of war still lay silent, but inside the bunker, something new was beginning. It was more than survival. It was a bond that no war could explain. The first light of dawn slipped into the broken bunker through cracks in the wall. Dust floated in the air, shining like tiny stars in the pale sunlight. Ryan sat on the cold floor, his body tired, his arm still aching from the transfusion. Yet he kept his eyes fixed on the alien princess who lay beside him. Her breathing was stronger than before, steady and calm. Her face had regained some color, no longer as pale as the night before. Ryan could see a faint glow under her skin, something natural to her kind. It reminded him of a soft flame hidden in crystal. He leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. He had risked everything by giving her his blood. He had not been sure it would work, but somehow it had. Now she was alive, and that was enough for him. The princess stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that glowed faintly with a gentle silver light. She blinked at the unfamiliar ceiling, then slowly turned her gaze toward Ryan. For a moment, her expression was confused. Then she whispered something in her language. Ryan tapped his wrist device, letting the translator pick up her words. The device crackled, then spoke in a soft mechanical voice. "You gave your strength." He nodded. "Yes. My blood kept you alive." Her lips parted slightly in surprise. She stared at him, her eyes wide, as if she could not believe it. "Impossible," the translator said, echoing her voice. "Our blood rejects all others." "I thought so too," Ryan said quietly. "But somehow, it worked." She lay still, trying to understand. Her hand touched her chest gently, as if feeling the life flowing inside her veins. For the first time, a spark of wonder lit her face. Ryan watched her carefully. "You should rest. Your body is still weak." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but not with anger. More with thought. "Human," she whispered. The translator echoed, "Human. Why, save me." Ryan hesitated. He could have said many things. He could have spoken of honor, of duty, or even of strategy. But none of that was true. He looked at her and gave the only answer he truly believed. "Because you were dying," he said. "And I could not let that happen." Her gaze softened. She turned her face away, staring at the broken wall, as if the meaning of his words was too heavy to meet head-on. In her empire, mercy was rare. Warriors fought, rulers commanded, and enemies were destroyed. Yet here was a human warrior, once her enemy, choosing to give life instead of taking it. Silence filled the bunker for a long time. The only sounds were the faint hum of the translator and the distant wind outside. Ryan shifted his position, trying to keep his mind sharp. His body was weaker now, drained from the blood he had given. He could feel the weight of fatigue pressing on his muscles. Still, he forced himself to stay alert. If danger came, he would have to protect her. The princess finally spoke again, her voice steadier than before. "Name," she whispered. "Ryan," he replied. She repeated it softly, as if testing the sound. "Ryan." "And you?" he asked. She hesitated, then said something in her tongue. The translator gave her name as Solara. "Solara," Ryan repeated, nodding. It felt strange, speaking the name of someone who was once his enemy, yet now was under his care. Her eyes lingered on him. "Ryan, strange cure," the translator said, echoing her faint smile. He allowed a small smile to form on his own face. "Yes. Strange, but real." For the first time, the space between them felt lighter. They were no longer warrior and enemy, but two beings bound by a thread that made no sense and yet was undeniable. As the day grew brighter, Ryan studied his scanner again. It showed her life signs slowly improving. Yet there was still danger. The radiation inside her blood was not fully gone. His transfusion had delayed death, but it was not a full cure. He frowned, thinking hard. How long could his blood keep her alive? Days? Hours? He did not know. He only knew that she needed more than he could give here. Solara noticed his expression. Problem? The translator asked. Yes, Ryan admitted. You are safe now, but only for a short time. We must find better medicine. Or my blood alone may not be enough. Her eyes darkened with worry, though she tried to hide it. Human blood should not heal me. Yet it does. This bond, not normal. Ryan nodded. It defies all logic. But it is real. And it means we must move. Staying here is not safe. Solara tried to sit up, but her body shook. Ryan quickly placed a hand on her shoulder to steady her. Do not push yourself, he warned. She breathed hard, then lay back down. Then you carry me again, she said softly. The translator made her words sound commanding, but her tone was more fragile, more like a request than an order. Ryan studied her face for a moment, then gave a short nod. I will. He stood slowly, stretching his tired muscles. His body still ached from battle and from the blood loss, but his will was steady. He checked his weapon, making sure it was still ready. Then he turned to Solara and carefully lifted her into his arms once more. She was light, far lighter than a soldier in armor should be. Her head rested against his chest, and he could feel the faint warmth of her body, a warmth his blood had returned to her. As he stepped out of the bunker, the ruined battlefield stretched before them. The sun rose higher, shining across twisted metal and broken machines. It was a graveyard of war, but within it, Ryan carried a life that should have been lost. Solara looked out over the ruins, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and wonder. War destroys, the translator whispered in her voice. But you, human, you heal. Ryan said nothing. He only walked forward, his steps steady. Deep inside, he knew this path would not be easy. Both humans and aliens would see them as enemies, not as allies. But he also knew one thing for certain. The strange cure that linked them was more than blood. It was a beginning, fragile yet powerful, that no war could erase. The morning sun had climbed higher, washing the battlefield in pale gold. Ryan carried Solara across the ruins, each step heavy yet steady. His arms still felt weak from the blood he had given her, but he ignored the ache. His focus stayed on the fragile life he carried. Solara's eyes stayed half open, watching the broken land with quiet thought. Her head rested against his chest, and though her body was still weak, her mind seemed more alert than before. From time to time she spoke softly, and the translator on Ryan's wrist caught her words. Strange, it said in its mechanical voice. I should not be alive. Yet I am. And I feel your strength inside me. Ryan looked down at her. You feel my blood? Yes, she whispered. It flows in me. It carries more than strength. It carries pieces of you. Her words made Ryan pause. He had not thought of it that way. But perhaps she was right. His blood carried his life, his battles, his endurance. And now it carried her too. As they moved forward, Ryan began to notice something odd. When he stumbled over debris, Solara gasped softly, as if she felt the jolt too. When his arm ached from holding her, her fingers twitched as though the pain brushed against her as well. It was as if some unseen thread connected them. They reached a ridge where the ground opened into a wide plain filled with wreckage. Ships lay scattered like fallen giants. Smoke still rose from distant fires. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of the wind and the crackle of ruined machines. Ryan set Solara down gently on a piece of metal that formed a seat. She leaned back, catching her breath, her silver eyes studying him closely. "You are weaker now," she said softly through the translator. "I gave you blood," Ryan replied. "That takes strength." Her gaze lingered on him. "You risked your life for me." "Why?" Ryan thought carefully before answering. "Because life is worth saving. Even if it belongs to someone who was once my enemy." Solara lowered her eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her hand touched her chest lightly. "When your blood entered me," she whispered, "I felt not only life returning. I felt memories. A storm. A world of blue skies. Laughter of people. Pain of war. It was as if your life brushed against mine." Ryan froze. His heart beat faster. Could it be true? Could his blood carry not just strength, but glimpses of his soul? "You saw my memories?" he asked quietly. Solara nodded. "Not clearly. Only fragments. But they were real. I felt your people. I felt your loss. I understood." Ryan sat back, stunned. This was more than medicine. It was a bond neither of them could explain. His blood had not only healed her body, it had connected their minds in some strange, impossible way. Solara's eyes lifted to meet his again. "And when I look at you now, I still feel it. A thread. It pulls me toward you." Ryan looked away, staring at the horizon. He was a soldier, trained to fight, not to understand such mysteries. Yet here he was, bound by something beyond science. They rested for a while, sharing silence. But it was not an empty silence. It was filled with unspoken words, with a strange closeness that needed no explanation. When Ryan finally stood again, he offered his hand. Solara took it, her grip weak but steady. He helped her up, and together they began moving across the plain. As they walked, the bond between them grew clearer. Ryan felt sudden flashes in his mind, images not his own. He saw a great palace of crystal towers shining under twin suns. He saw Solara as a child, running through gardens filled with glowing flowers. He felt the weight of a crown placed on her head, heavy with duty. He stumbled slightly, gasping. Solara looked at him sharply. "You saw," she whispered. "Yes," Ryan admitted. "Your memories. Just as you felt mine." Her eyes widened. "Then it is true. The bond goes both ways." They walked in silence again, both of them lost in thought. This connection was dangerous. If others discovered it, they would never understand. Humans might fear it. Aliens might call it unnatural. Yet for Ryan and Solara, it was real, undeniable, and already changing the way they saw each other. Hours passed as they moved through the wasteland. The sun sank lower, painting the sky with red and gold. Ryan's body ached from exhaustion, but Solara's steps grew steadier with each moment. She still leaned on him, but she no longer seemed on the edge of death. His blood had truly given her strength. As they crossed a broken bridge, the silence was broken by distant echoes. Ryan froze, listening. Voices. Metal clanking. Soldiers moving. He crouched low, pulling Solara with him behind a piece of rubble. Through the cracks, he saw figures in shining armor moving across the plain. Their banners carried the symbol of Solara's empire. Alien soldiers. They were searching, their eyes sharp, their weapons ready. Solara's breath caught. "My people," she whispered. Ryan's jaw tightened. "If they find me with you, they will kill me." She looked at him, her eyes filled with conflict. "If they find me alone, I may live. But without you, this bond may break." Ryan studied her face. He saw the fear, not for herself alone, but for him as well. The bond had changed her too. The soldiers drew closer, scanning the wreckage. Ryan gripped his weapon, ready for a fight he knew he could not win. But before he could act, Solara touched his hand. "No," she whispered firmly. "Trust me." She stood slowly, her body trembling but her gaze strong. She stepped into the open, her silver eyes shining. The soldiers froze in shock, recognizing her at once. Their weapons lowered, and they fell to one knee. "Princess Solara," the leader said, his voice shaking. "We thought you lost." Solara raised her hand. "I live, but only because of him," she said, pointing to Ryan as he stepped into the light. The soldiers stiffened, their hands reaching for weapons. A human warrior standing beside their princess was unthinkable. But Solara's voice cut through the tension. "He saved my life. His blood flows in me now. Harm him, and you harm me." The soldiers hesitated, confused, and afraid. They looked at one another, unsure what to do. None dared disobey their princess, yet none could understand her words. Ryan stood tall, meeting their stares without fear. He knew the truth was beyond their logic. A human and alien bound by blood, by life itself. Solara stepped closer to him, her voice steady. "We are connected. By more than chance. By more than war. An impossible bond now ties us together." The soldiers of Solara's empire stood frozen, their weapons lowered but their eyes sharp. None of them understood the sight before them. Their princess, thought lost on the battlefield, was alive. But even stranger, she stood beside a human warrior. Ryan kept his weapon at his side, ready but not raised. He knew any sudden move could turn the moment into bloodshed. His eyes scanned the soldiers, counting at least a dozen, all armed and uninjured. If they decided to attack, he would not last long. Solara stepped forward, her body still weak but her voice steady. "He is under my protection," she declared in her own tongue. The translator on Ryan's wrist repeated her words in human language, though the meaning was already clear in her tone. The leader of the alien soldiers, a tall figure with crimson armor, bowed his head but spoke firmly. "Princess, this is a human. They are our enemy. He does not belong at your side." Solara lifted her chin, silver eyes glowing faintly. "Then you do not see what I see. This human gave me his blood. Without him, I would be dead." The soldiers shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves. The idea sounded impossible. No one had ever heard of human blood saving their kind. To them, it was madness. Ryan stood silent, letting Solara's voice carry the weight of truth. He watched her with quiet awe. Only hours ago, she had been close to death. Now, though her body was still fragile, her spirit burned with new fire. She turned her gaze back to the soldiers. "You doubt my words? Look at me. Look at my strength. Hours ago, my life was fading. Now I stand before you. Do you think I found this strength in ruins alone? No. It came from him. The crimson-armored leader hesitated. His loyalty to her was strong, but the idea of trusting a human shook him. Finally, he said, if what you claim is true, then you are bound to him in a way that defies our knowledge. But what will the council say, when they learn their princess carries human blood? At those words, Solara faltered slightly. She had thought of this already. Her empire was proud, bound by strict laws and ancient traditions. They hated humans, blaming them for endless war. If her people discovered the truth, they might not see it as salvation but as dishonor. Ryan noticed her hesitation. Through the strange bond they shared, he felt a ripple of her fear. But he also felt her resolve, pushing back against it. She straightened again, her voice strong. Let the council say what they will, she answered. But I live. And because I live, I will speak. My word will carry weight, and my word is this human is not my enemy. He is my savior. The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks, but none dared argue further. They bowed their heads in respect. Solara turned back to Ryan, her expression softer now. They may not understand, she said quietly, but I do. The bond we share is real. I feel it every moment. Ryan nodded. So do I. As the soldiers prepared transport to return her to their base, Solara asked Ryan to walk beside her. Together they moved through the wreckage, her people forming a protective circle around them. On the journey, Ryan felt the bond deepen. He caught glimpses of her thoughts without meaning to memories of her childhood, her fears of failing her people, her loneliness in a world of duty. And he knew she felt his memories too, the loss of his comrades, the quiet pain of battle, and the stubborn hope that kept him alive. For the first time, they truly understood each other. Not as human and alien, not as warrior and princess, but as two souls who carried the same burden of survival. When they reached a waiting craft, Solara stopped before stepping inside. She looked at Ryan with searching eyes. If you come with me, my people may not welcome you. They may call you an enemy still. Are you ready for that? Ryan met her gaze without fear. I did not save you to abandon you now. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. It was not the smile of a ruler, but of someone who felt safe for the first time in years. Then you will walk beside me, she whispered. The soldiers stared in disbelief as she helped him aboard the craft. None spoke against her decision, but unease hung heavy in the air. Inside, the craft lifted off, leaving the battlefield behind. Through the small window, Ryan watched the ruins grow smaller. For him, the war had always been about survival. For Solara, it had always been about duty. But now, as the craft carried them toward her empire, something new awaited them both. During the flight, Solara's body trembled faintly. She closed her eyes, leaning against the seat. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder without thinking. At once, the bond between them pulsed stronger. In his mind, he felt her fear of the future, the weight of facing her council, the dread of what her people might do when they discovered the truth. And in return, she felt his calm resolve, his promise to stand beside her no matter what came. Her hand lifted weakly, resting on his. Your thoughts, they steady me, she whispered. And yours remind me why I fight, Ryan answered. The soldiers glanced at them uneasily, but neither Solara nor Ryan cared. They were no longer two strangers from opposite sides of war. They were bound by something deeper, something no empire or army could undo. As the craft flew across the horizon, Solara opened her eyes again. She studied Ryan carefully, her voice soft but certain. This bond is not accident. It is awakening. Something greater than us both. Ryan met her gaze and nodded. Then we face it together. And in that quiet moment, under the hum of the craft and the eyes of watching soldiers, two lives that should have remained enemies were instead united. Not by choice of war, not by command of rulers, but by a bond of blood that awakened something far greater than either of them had ever known. The journey back to Solara's empire was not long, but the silence inside the craft felt heavy. The alien soldiers avoided looking at Ryan. To them, he was still a human warrior, a sworn enemy, yet their princess had declared him her protector. None dared question her openly, but unease lingered in every glance. Solara sat near Ryan, her posture calm though her eyes revealed deep thought. She seemed stronger than before, but the bond between them told Ryan she was still weak. He could feel her exhaustion and her worry, even as she hid it from her people. When the craft landed at the edge of the capital, a crowd was already waiting. Soldiers, healers, and council members rushed forward the moment the door opened. Gasps filled the air as the princess stepped out alive, supported slightly by Ryan at her side. "She lives," someone whispered. But then eyes turned to Ryan, and the whispers grew louder. "A human? Why is he here? Why is he beside her?" The crimson-armored leader quickly announced, "The princess survived the battlefield. She commands that this human remain under her protection." The council members frowned, their sharp robes and jeweled crests glowing in the sunlight. One elder, with pale hair and piercing eyes, stepped forward. "Princess, this is most unusual. Why bring our enemy into the heart of our city?" Solara's voice rang out with steady strength. "Because without him, I would not stand before you. This human gave his blood to me when all hope was lost. My life continues because of his choice." Shocked silence followed. The council members stared in disbelief. Some muttered that it was impossible. Others looked fearful, as if the very idea broke the laws of nature. Ryan stood quietly beside her, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon but not drawing it. He was surrounded by a sea of strangers, every one of them hostile. Yet he felt no fear. The bond between him and Solara gave him a strange calm, as though her heartbeat echoed inside him. The pale-haired elder spoke again. "Princess, you ask us to believe that human blood flows in your body. If such a thing is true, then you are changed. How will our people accept this? How will they see you as their leader if you carry the blood of an enemy?" Solara lifted her chin. "They will see me as alive. And an alive princess is better than a dead one. Do not twist a gift into shame. My survival is no dishonor. It is proof that even in war, life can rise where death was certain." The crowd wavered, torn between fear and admiration. Some bowed in respect. Others scowled, refusing to accept her words. Before the council could answer, a sudden alarm echoed across the city. Red lights flashed along the walls, and soldiers rushed into formation. A voice crackled through the comm system. "Enemy fleet approaching. Human warships entering orbit." The crowd gasped. Ryan's eyes hardened. He had known this day would come. Solara turned sharply toward the council. "Prepare our defenses. We will not fall today." The elder looked at her coldly. "You say this while standing beside a human warrior. How do we know he is not here as part of their plan? How do we know this attack is not linked to him?" Solara's voice cut through the doubt like steel. "Do not speak of betrayal when you see loyalty standing before you. He had a chance to let me die. Instead, he gave of himself. He has earned my trust. Do not insult me by questioning my judgment. The elder stepped back, silenced by her fire. Ryan spoke for the first time since leaving the craft. His voice was calm but firm. If my people have come, then they will bring war. I will not lie. But I did not call them here. I stand with her. If you let me fight, I will fight to protect the city. The soldiers around him shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to believe. The idea of a human defending their capital was unthinkable. Yet Solara's gaze never wavered. You will fight, she said to Ryan, loud enough for all to hear. Not as an enemy. Not as a prisoner. But as my chosen protector. The declaration sent a wave of murmurs through the crowd. Many stared in disbelief, but none could deny the authority in her voice. Moments later, the sky lit with fire. Human warships descended, their weapons striking the outer shields of the city. Explosions rumbled across the horizon. The battle had begun. Ryan moved quickly, following Solara as she was escorted to the command center. Inside, glowing screens showed the sky filled with enemy ships. Alien officers shouted reports, their voices sharp with tension. Solara stood tall despite her weakness. She gave orders with clarity, directing shield energy to the city's weakest points and calling squadrons to defend the skies. Ryan watched her in awe. She was not just a princess saved from death. She was a leader who carried the strength of her people. But as the battle raged, the enemy broke through the outer defenses. Human dropships landed on the plains outside the city, spilling soldiers onto the ground. The Empire's warriors rushed to meet them. Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon. They will come for the command center. They will come for you, he said to Solara. Her eyes met his, steady and calm. Then we will meet them together. Through the bond, Ryan felt her fear but also her courage. She no longer saw him as an outsider. She saw him as part of her strength. When the first wave of human soldiers broke through the outer lines, alarms blared inside the command center. The crimson-armored leader drew his blade, rallying the guards. Ryan stepped forward, standing beside Solara, ready for what was coming. The enemy had returned, but this time the battlefield was not ruins. It was the heart of her empire. And for the first time in history, a human warrior stood ready to defend an alien princess, not as a foe, but as her chosen protector. The city trembled under fire, the sky roared with war, and history itself seemed to hold its breath. What followed would decide not only their survival but the future of both their peoples. The city shook under the storm of fire from the skies. Explosions lit the horizon, and the shields of Solara's empire cracked under the pressure. Every citizen, every soldier, every leader felt the weight of survival pressing on them. In the command center, the council argued, the officers shouted, but Solara stood firm in the middle of the storm. Her silver eyes burned with determination. Beside her, Ryan kept his weapon ready, watching every entrance, waiting for the moment the enemy would break through. Through their strange bond, Solara felt his calm strength. It steadied her as the ground trembled under another blast. She looked at him and spoke quietly, so only he would hear. You are far from your people. Yet you stand with me. Why? Ryan answered without hesitation. Because the bond chose us both. My blood keeps you alive, and your courage gives me reason to fight. I no longer see you as enemy. You are the life I swore to protect. Her heart trembled at his words, but she drew power from them. A new alarm rang out. Human dropships landed near the city gates. Troops stormed the walls, their weapons glowing in the smoke. The crimson-armored leader rallied the guards, shouting for the defense lines to hold. The battle was no longer distant. It was here. Solara raised her voice above the chaos. All units, hold the gates. Protect the people. Fight for our home. The command center shook as the first human soldiers reached the outer doors. Ryan stepped forward. They will come here. I must face them. Solara's hand caught his arm. If you fall, I fall. Do not forget our bond. He met her gaze, steady and unbroken. Then I will not fall. When the doors burst open, the battle roared inside the command center. Human soldiers stormed forward, their armor dark and their weapons sharp. The Empire's guards met them with blades of light and shields of energy. The clash of steel and fire echoed through the chamber. Ryan leapt into the fight, moving with the skill of a warrior who had survived countless battles. His blade struck true, defending the princess with every swing. The alien guards, though uncertain of him, saw his strength and began to fight beside him, not against him. Solara watched with wide eyes. She felt his focus through the bond, every strike filled with resolve. He was not fighting for victory alone. He was fighting for her life, for the strange connection that had defied all rules of nature. The pale-haired elder, who had doubted her, stared in shock as Ryan cut down soldier after soldier. Impossible, he whispered. A human fighting for us. Solara answered firmly, not for us. For me. And through me, for all of you. The battle raged on, but slowly the tide began to turn. The city's defenses, strengthened by Solara's leadership, pushed back the invading forces. The skies burned with fire, yet the shields held long enough for counter-strikes to hit the enemy ships. One by one, the human warships faltered under the pressure. Still, the command center faced its greatest danger. The enemy commander, a tall human in black armor, stepped through the shattered doors. His weapon glowed with deadly light. His eyes fixed on Solara. So, he said, his voice cold, the alien princess lives. And a traitor of my kind stands at her side. Ryan stepped forward, his blade raised. I am no traitor. I am warrior. I fight for the life I saved. And I will not let you take her. The commander sneered. Then you will die with her. The duel began, fierce and fast. Ryan clashed with the commander, sparks flying as blade met blade. The sound rang through the chamber, drawing every eye. Solara gripped the edge of the console, her heart pounding with each strike. Through the bond, she felt Ryan's strength, his pain, his will to endure. The commander was skilled, stronger than most, but Ryan fought with something more. He fought with purpose beyond war. Every time his arms trembled, he thought of Solara's eyes, her breath, her life tied to his blood. That thought gave him the power to rise again. At last, with one final strike, Ryan drove his blade through the commander's guard, sending the enemy crashing to the floor. Silence followed, heavy and stunned. The human troops hesitated, their leader fallen. The Empire's soldiers pressed forward with renewed strength, forcing the invaders back. The city shields flared bright one last time, then the enemy ships broke formation, retreating into the dark sky. The battle was over. The city still stood. Exhausted, Ryan lowered his blade. Solara rushed to him, her hand touching his arm. You live, she whispered. Relief flooded through their bond. He nodded, his chest rising with heavy breaths. Because I could not let you fall. The council gathered around, their faces torn between awe and fear. The pale-haired elder spoke at last. Princess, what we have seen today defies reason. You live with human blood in your veins. And now a human has fought for us as if he were one of our own. How can this be accepted? Scylla stood tall, her hand still resting on Ryan's arm. Her voice rang clear. It will be accepted because it is truth. My life is proof. His blade is proof. The bond between us cannot be denied. We can no longer cling to old hatred. If human blood can save a princess, then perhaps peace can save us all. Her words spread through the chamber, carried by the silence of those who had seen what no one thought possible. Ryan looked at her, his voice quiet but certain. Our bond broke the laws of logic. Let it break the laws of war as well. Scylla smiled faintly, her strength shining brighter than the wounds of battle. Then together, we will show them a new path. And so it began. Not with treaties or grand councils, but with a single act of sacrifice that grew into something greater. A human warrior and an alien princess, bound by blood, had stood against war and survived. The Empire could no longer deny it. Humanity could no longer ignore it. The bond that defied all logic had become the start of something neither side had ever imagined. It was the beginning of a future where enemies could become protectors, where blood could unite instead of divide.